Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Say Report. I'm your host, Devon Decker, and it has been a week. But before we get there, I have to introduce you to my always outrageous host companion, Sejohn.
You sound like a test reel for Yogi Bear. Like we're not quite there. But this is the direction we're going.
Hey, Sejohn.
You sound
How
like one
about
of the
we steal
animators
some of
filling
these
in
picnic baskets? Ranger Smith will never know.
before they call in the actual voice actor to finish the lines up. But they're just like, we need some placement audio here.
I'm like the on-set guy who played Underdog. Who I know. He played Linus in Slither. So,
Nice.
it's all connected because it's Rhode Island filmmaking. Sejohn, it's been a week. I don't know why that made me do goofy voices, but it's been a week. I've had a week. I was frazzled. I'm better now. In the last 6 days, I have recovered from, honestly, one of those, like, Mondays. Like
Manic Mondays, one of those manic Mondays.
I mean, this is what a Manic Monday would really be. The Bengals got nothing on the Manic Monday that I have. So here's a fun thing. My campus, the campus where I work, is the busiest on Mondays.
Right.
I don't know why that is. It's probably true of maybe all institutions.
Yeah,
But
it's because you just had a weekend and you feel like you're actually going to get work done, so you actually like show.
yeah, so people actually show
And
up.
and then slowly throughout the week, more and more people drop off, and they're just like, I'm not putting the pressure on.
And I think it's also one of those things where if the class is hybrid, having everybody meet on Monday, then the rest of the week kind of feels like a vacation. I don't know if that's true or not. That's my own personal opinion. I don't want to inject anything onto it. But yes, like that's the thing. So because of that, if I want to get a parking spot, I show up to work roughly an hour earlier than I have to. That's what I do every Monday. And it doesn't help that they closed like a bunch of parking lots because of like baseball season. I don't get it. But anywho, so I left my house at 6:30 this past Monday. Was it April 10th, maybe? That sounds right. Let's say it was April 10th. And I'm on my way to work, and I'm having a great time. So you know what do you do? Do you have a Monday routine? I know you work from home, but no, you work in an office right now. You're working at the box office.
Yeah,
Do you
no,
have a
I
Monday
mean,
routine?
I mean, like my Monday, I don't have a specific routine for like Monday.
Okay.
I have a workday routine that's very different from my weekend routine.
Well, I'm sure we all do.
But right, exactly. Yeah. But no, I don't have a Monday. Like I don't have like a get psyched moment on Monday because like I
I
don't want to be at work ever. So
That's the point. So my Monday routine, and it's actually you. Now that you mention it, now that I'm observing it, what a like roll of the dice I take every Monday. I should not be doing what I'm doing on Mondays. What I'm doing is after like I'm established in the week. But Monday, my Discover Weekly updates. So I listen to songs that Spotify thinks I'm going to enjoy. That's how I start every Monday. Is that drive in, I do the first half of my Discover Weekly, and then the drive home is the second half. So like that's crazy to me now that I'm thinking about it. That like I don't play my like Devon fucking Decker gets psyched up mix of 10 songs. I play random songs that I might have no affinity for.
oh, so you're playing emotional roulette with yourself on a Monday.
On a Monday,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Notoriously the worst day to do it. So I'm having a good day. I will full admit that. The Discover Weekly stuff was pretty good. I liked about 3 of the 6 songs that I had listened to. And I'm about to get off of 295, the main interstate, to get onto Route 6, heading towards the campus. And my car just rapidly decelerates.
Did you just give up? It was just
It's
like,
just like,
and we're done.
So I'm going 65, which is the speed limit, and then and it hits 40, and like it won't go higher than 40. And I'm like, well, this is a problem, right? There's something wrong with my car in this moment.
I'm not a mechanic of any kind, but this is not how car do.
It was at that moment that he knew he was fucked. So I pull over onto the shoulder. I take the exit. I pull over onto the shoulder. I kill my car. I think, well, maybe it was just something crazy. I'll let it rest for a second, and then I'll try turn it on and see what happens. So I start my car back up, starts up without any issue. So I'm like, so it's not the engine that's the problem. That's good to know.
Mm-hmm.
I shifted into drive. I get back on the highway. It's feeling pretty good. And then once I get to about 20, 25 miles per hour, it starts to feel real crunchy, which is the like actual mechanical term for it, because the gears are crunching together.
Yeah.
In the transmission as they try to shift gears. So I power through that, and then I'm going again, and then I get to 40, and the car will not go over 40. So I'm like, oh, fuck, it's the transmission. Now I'm at work. I'm closer to work than I am to home, but it's 7 in the morning, right? And I don't start work for another hour. So it's like, do I want to sit here all day and then have to deal with this? Or do I maybe try to like limp this guy home while it's still 7 in the morning and the roads are relatively empty?
Tev, what did you do?
I limped home.
Oh, man. Okay, this is not the right decision, folks, just as a heads up, because anything could have been wrong with your car.
I understand that, but, well, I mean, I limped to the garage. I limped to an automotive garage. And
yeah,
I'm
but
like,
back in Coventry, right?
Well, it's West Warwick. It's off of Route 2 in West Warwick. Jennings, I'll give them a shout out. They treat me right. And they've been there since like the 70s. It's crazy. But yeah, so I get off and I take all back roads, and I'm like, this is a good test of my back road knowledge of basically like the Silver Lake area.
Yeah.
So I'm able to do it, and I'm able to stay like around 30 miles per hour the whole time. So I get my car to the shop, and they don't open until 8 o'clock. It's 7:50. I'm like, I'll just wait. So then I see the guys who run the shop. They come in, and they unlock the door, and then they wave me in, even though it's not 8 o'clock yet. And I go in there like, what's going on? And I'm like, I'm pretty sure the transmission is just done in this car. And they're like, well, we'll look at it. That we don't know that. So I don't have a car now, right? I'm at the shop. I call for a ride, and then I have the other decision to make on this Monday, which is, do I now go to work and then have to rely on a ride home? Or is this like, do I get to take this as a day, right?
Do I just take the L on this one and go back to bed?
Yeah. So I took the L. I'm
Nice.
like, I'm just going to take the L on this one. You know, I have the time, and who knows, like maybe my car will be fine and everything will be good on Tuesday. And then I go home, and I'm like, well, now that I have all this extra time, I can like handle some of the projects I've been putting off at home. So we wanted to upgrade our PS5s. We finally got like the M2 drives to upgrade the PS5s that we have in the house.
Okay.
And that's awesome. Like, that's super easy. I cannot believe it took this long in video game consoles for them to offer the consumer the ability to do something like that.
Well, I mean, the 360 let you slip a hard drive into it, didn't it?
I don't know. I never had a 360.
Yeah, the 360 had just a slot on the back. You just pop the grate off, and there was just a little slot there for you to just slip in the
I mean,
to be
they kind of feel like memory
Xbox
cards,
specific,
though. Yeah.
the Xbox specific. Well, I mean, like it was a Seagate hard drive. I think it was Seagate that made them. So like it was weird because they were a Seagate, and like you could but the second you plugged it into with Xbox 360, it would then format it for the 360, and then you could just close it back up.
Yeah, they were that gray
wild
thing, right? Like it kind of looked like step stool, or like steps. Like it was flat and then it went up.
So it looked like the the one that I'm thinking about was just a hard drive looking thing. Like I've got a hard drive sitting here that's a terabyte hard drive that would put that thing to shame now probably, because I think that thing was only like 100 gigabytes or something like that.
Yeah,
but you know, we are talking about 20 years ago. But you know, it was just about the size of like a, you know, like I think like a birthday card, but you know, with about an inch thickness to it, and like.
I guess I think what I'm remembering right now that I was never in the Xbox ecosystem. Well, I had a regular Xbox, and then the X360 didn't interest me. Like the games didn't interest me except for Dead Rising. Like that was the one game, and I'm like, I can't justify it for one game, not at this time in my life. It was like food or Xbox 360.
Yeah, I mean, you weren't a Halo or Call of Duty guy, so yeah. like I get it.
I only got a PS3 because of Soul Calibur 4. And then that was like the decider. Do I get a PS3 or do I get a Xbox 360? And it's like, well, Darth Vader's cooler than Yoda. So, and Soul Calibur, I have found going through my life, is the reason why I buy consoles. Like if I haven't bought a console yet, but then a Soul Calibur game's coming out for it, I'm gonna pick that console up. That's just the fact of the matter. And yet somehow I've never played the PSP version. It's the only Soul Calibur game I've never played. Back to it. So yeah, the Xbox. I remember because they had the arcade one that like had a disc drive, but then only had like 7 gigabytes of storage on it.
Right,
Like a ridiculous thing. And then you could buy the hard drive for it. And I thought it was at what you were talking about, but it kind of had like a gray enclosure that you put in. I don't remember. But yeah, so that's it. But that was proprietary. I guess what I'm talking about with the PS5 is the fact that they're like, just buy any M2 drive and we'll let you put it inside of us.
Yeah. As far as installing it into the system goes, yeah.
Yeah. And it felt like upgrading a PC as opposed to what you were discussing with the Xbox 360. Because I think also technically the PS2, once they released the internet drive, like the Ethernet thing, you could also put a hard drive in that, or it had a hard drive in it.
Yeah, I mean, or the N64 famously had the memory upgrade pack for it too and stuff, but that was a RAM upgrade. Yeah. But yeah,
but that was like specific for that. You couldn't just go buy RAM. You had to buy that.
Right, so, proprietary nature.
And especially when you think of Sony and we're going to make our memory stick, and it is the only thing that will work with our things. We're going to make a memory stick that is only for the PSP or the Vita. Like, those were two specific different formats for, like, memory stick technology. Like,
yeah, I will say that in the interim years since those weird proprietary memory years, memory manufacturing for PCs and for electronic devices across the board has gone fucking crazy. I mean, between like literal flooding that has like upped market prices because because of the destruction of physical physical hardware, it all the way down to like the ingredients needed to like make it right. It's like the lithium or something in them that like makes it like there's like rare metals.
Yeah, the rare metals that are in them. So, I mean, I haven't seen that so much with memory, but I've seen it with like GPUs and things.
But it is the reason why making proprietary memory based stuff is just not viable anymore because it costs too much fucking money. But yeah, probably 2015 I think is when the big like flood in Korea happened, and it like ruined just like I want to say something like 40% of like the memory card supply in the world, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, back in 2014, I was able to get. I mean, everything's micro SD card now, right? Everything is that little guy. I was able to get adapters that would allow me to put a micro SD card into basically anything that had previously been proprietary.
Oh, people have found that like some like cheaper, what do you call it, cards, or SD cards just have micro SDs like in them. The micro SDs are used for everything nowadays.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's where it is. I mean, I bought a micro SD card yesterday, and I'm getting ahead of myself, but it was 128 gigs and it was $10, and that felt real good, especially because like the Link branded one for Tears of the Kingdom was like $130 for the same amount that I handed someone a $10 bill for yesterday. It felt pretty good, I'm not gonna lie about that. I'm gonna be honest. But yeah, so I go home and very easy to upgrade this memory and I'm like feeling good, but then as I'm re-putting the PlayStation 5 where it goes, I slip and I hit the table like real hard. The PS5 is fine, it's okay, but my hand hit the table, and at the time, what I did not realize, it also hit my laptop. And I hit my laptop with such force that I cracked the screen from the back.
Man, I'm so sorry. So, that's just like, it sounds like something out of a fucking sitcom at this point.
Yeah, it's just like, I had a Monday. I had this awful Monday, and then it kind of set the pace for the rest of the week, is the nicest thing that I can say about it. But yeah, so now I don't have my laptop, I don't have my car, and it's like, well, at least I was able to upgrade my PS5. And so far, fingers crossed, nothing wrong there. Tuesday comes along, I still haven't heard from the shop about my car. So I'm not optimistic, is going to be what I'm saying. At this point, I'm using Dale's working from home this week, so I'm able to use her car to get to work. So I feel okay. I'm back at work and I'm there. But, like, I end up stuck at work because I'm waiting for them to call. I don't want to go home and then have to go out again, right?
Hmm.
So I stay at work till like 7 o'clock, which is fine. I missed the last day. I had stuff to catch up on. It felt pretty good. Still no call. So Wednesday, I got the call from them, and they're like, all right, sorry about not getting in touch with you. We checked your computer. It was transmission based, and then we were waiting to decipher what was wrong with the transmission. Come to find out, even though I'm driving a Chevy, the transmission is Nissan. It's a Nissan transmission for some reason, right? American made car with a Japanese part in it. And afterwards, now knowing that, it makes perfect sense to me because when I was renting cars, the reason why I bought my car, the Chevy Spark, was because I was renting cars to travel around the country, and invariably they'd always give me a Spark, and I just like got comfortable driving the car. For a tiny car, it has a lot of space inside. I mean, you've ridden in my car. Is that an apt description of it?
Yes. What do you want me to do? No, it's a clown car.
Yeah, you could tell me that. I don't want to. I'm the driver. Of course, I'm going to have an affinity for it. But would you believe that we could fit 4 adult males in that car comfortably, as we did at least 2 times?
Comfortably is where I think I might ask you to be careful with your language choice. But yeah, I could definitely see that you could fit 4 people in that car. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a nice surprise. So then they were also really affordable. Like for a new car, it was like used car prices to buy a Spark. But now come to find out that it's because it was a Nissan transmission in there. And I don't know if you remember, we had friends in college who had cars with Nissan transmissions.
Mm-hmm.
And they would notoriously just die one day. And you would like, well, why can't you fix it? And the reason is, it's like all in one. It's not something that you can open up and repair whatever's broken in it. They're just like, oh, we'll pull it out and then we'll throw in another one and it'll be fine. But then if they stop making those transmissions because your car is almost 10 years old, you're fucked. So the only thing that I can do for my car is buy a used transmission, which will cost about 1/3 of the value of the car at this point.
Yeah.
So I lost my laptop on Monday, for real. Like, it's not usable anymore. And then on Wednesday, I found out I don't have my car anymore.
Oh, man.
But then we also recorded our Coneheads episode, and that was amazing.
So the Spark was discontinued in 2021, I think.
That was a smart car that was discontinued in 2021.
The second generation units of the Chevy Spark discontinued in 2021,
really?
But continue to ride on in the Gamma 2 platform, shared with the Chevy Trax and the Chevy Sonic.
Which is what Dale has.
Yeah.
Oh, because I could have bought a new Chevy Spark. I was like looking at them, but I'm like, I don't have the money for it right now. That's the other thing I learned is someone at the campus asked me, they're like, oh, your car's done? So you're going to buy a new one this weekend? And I'm just like, I don't have the money to just go out and buy a new car.
Yeah.
Like that. These are the people who are educating children?
Yeah. Well, I think part of the problem is that so much has changed in like the process of buying a car over the last like 40 years that like people don't understand that we just can't do that anymore. Like I mean, not least of which because a lot of consumer protection stuff is in place, and so you can't just walk into a place and have them fucking swindle you into a shitty contract, right? Yeah. Like one of the biggest things that happened in like the 90s and the 2000s is that it was very easy to go get a new car because people were very happy to sell you a thing you couldn't actually afford, right? And so like the second everybody was like, maybe we shouldn't do that, that was a great decision, but it did all of a sudden limit the amount of people that could just walk into a car place and walk out with key in hand, right?
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, and so like we just don't
like lease, but it's like right now it's not necessary, and that's the best place to be in. I'm able to use Dale's car because she's working from home, and I mean that might change. She's been interviewing and looking for other gigs because she's ready to get back out there into the world. But like right now, it is okay. I have access to a vehicle, but like if I didn't, like this week, I'm lucky to have the support system that I have. Is what I'm gonna say. And I was lucky that the day that I found out the car that I have loved and put hundreds of thousands of miles on driving around the United States of America is like no more. We were able to do our Coneheads episode, which is still some of the most fun I've ever had sitting in this chair talking into this microphone. But then also with the Coneheads episode, come to find out that this computer that we're recording on right now, it's starting to have no compatibility with the software anymore. The updates to the software are now outside of the realm of this particular operating system.
Yeah, not to give too much info on what goes on behind the scenes with this show, but the computer that we were running on, the mouse that was running the wheel inside decided it wanted to retire.
Yeah, and you know what? He's worked hard and diligently, so it was just, and honestly, I should have seen it coming because I have a coworker who's on Mac, and she was all, I can't access my Outlook email anymore. I get this message, and I read it, and I'm like, oh, that's because your computer's not compatible anymore with Outlook. And she's like, that can't be. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's the case. But I put in a ticket with IT, and IT spent, 2 hours doing every diagnostic for the outcome to be, yeah, so your computer's just old and not compatible anymore with Microsoft Outlook's website. Which, that's crazy, right? Like, I can't remember a time where that occurred, right? It, on some level, it feels manufactured to me, right?
I mean, I guess I've known for 20 years now that like technology will last you about 3 to 5 years.
And that's, yeah, I guess
that's always been the rule of thumb with technology.
So when I bought my oldest laptop, the laptop that I bought in 2010, right? Mm-hmm. I got a Windows 7 laptop, and Windows 8 was available, but Windows 8 was Windows 8.
Windows 8 was trash.
Yeah, it was a kind of a garbage platform. So I went with a Windows 7 thing, and then I was using that old laptop, and Windows 7 was functioning fine on it, and da-da-da. And then I was like, I have Windows 7 on the PC that I use down here. Everything that I stream was on that Windows 7 PC, and it's been going fine. But now that they've shut down, stuff for Windows 7, I feel like Windows 7 just stayed compatible for so long. So it's just surprising.
Yes, because when they tried to phase it out with Windows 8, they whiffed it so bad.
Yeah.
Like that's why, is because it wouldn't have lasted as long if Windows 8 had worked properly. You better believe that Windows 7 would have been sunset a million years earlier, right? Like, but they didn't have that. They didn't have anything to fall back on, because what they had then done is, in addition to skipping over Windows 8 and 9, right? Like they went right to 10.
They went right to 10. They did 8. They did 2 major updates.
They did 8 and then 8.7, right?
Yeah.
Which is, or something like that. So, but what happened was, nobody wanted to sell a computer with Windows 8 on it either. So they were also selling Windows 7 devices up until they were finally sunsetting Windows 7 through Windows 10. So that is, by numerical account, like that is 3 generations later. So yeah, it lasted an insanely long time. You're not wrong. But the operating system is not the only reason to update a piece of software.
No. And I understand that. I
mean, a piece of hardware, sorry.
No, I understand. But one of those situations where, like, I've had a Windows 10 laptop, the one that I busted on this past Monday, I've owned that longer than the Say report. Like, I've had that for 7 years. Mm-hmm. So, like, to think that I've been on Windows 7 from 2010 through to, like, 2023, like, that's 13 years there. And within there, for 7 of those years, I was also using Windows 10 on a laptop. And they both functioned fine. Like, the first time that I met with something that would not work on my Windows 7 computer was the Return to Monkey Island game that came out this past October. Like, that was the first time that it was a problem, what I was doing. And now it just feels like that was the slippery slope, and now I'm seeing it almost everywhere. Like, it's like Bader Meinhof of noticing that.
Yeah, I as somebody that's worked in the software industry for the last 5 years, like all we've been telling people for over 5 years is, just so you know, Windows does not support 7 anymore. So so when I was working for Netflix, it was, so this will work on a Windows 7 device, but we can't support it beyond like basic like turn it off and on again, like because there literally is no support for Windows to go in and like help us tinker and fix anything. So like we'll give you basic setups of that, and then later companies I worked for were straight up just like, no, we won't talk to you if you don't have a Windows 10 device, because if you've got anything older than Windows 10, we bluntly tell you that it's not supported by that. And a lot of people will say, well, it's working. That's not the same as supporting it.
That's not the same as support.
Like it can work all at once on it, but if it breaks down, guess what we're not going to do? We're not going to fix it. That's what not support it means.
Well, I guess I also, there's that third pillar that I'm not even mentioning, is the fact that I was on a Windows 7 machine in my office
That's a
up
whole
until
other fish, yeah.
last year, when there was a power surge that finally killed the
Noticeably
machine.
for a government job, right?
Yeah, for a government job. And like there was a massive switch over to Windows 10 on the campus, but because it was COVID times,
right?
like they just never got to our office area.
Yeah, you guys fell through the cracks, right? Yeah,
and we would tell people that, and they would be like, "Oh, well, you're fine. If it works right now, we'll switch it over when we have to." And then when we told the head of the IT department that our office was still working on Windows 7 computers, he was super angry because he's like, "I was told that there was not a single Windows 7 device on this campus anymore."
It's a security risk.
I know,
that's
it's
one
a
of the
huge
biggest things.
Yeah, exactly. But even then, even him saying that and hearing about that, it still wasn't until 5 months later, when a power surge finally killed my machine, that I got upgraded. And then once I was upgraded, they're like, "Oh, we need to upgrade every other computer in this office."
If there's anything that ever needs to be done to make your job easier, you better believe that at a government job, they will put 5 roadblocks in the way of it.
Yeah. So I mean, so Windows 7 felt viable for me just because of my microcosm of technology.
Yeah.
So then, like, and I'm skipping basically over Windows 10 to Windows 11 because something exciting happened on Thursday, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. It's Vampire Survivors DLC number 2, Secrets of the Foscari.
Secrets of the Ooze.
Oh, I'm excited to talk about that. But yesterday, you know, I needed a laptop, right? Like, there's stuff that I have to do. Like, I did our taxes on my old laptop, so I want to be able to move those over and make sure that everything's good. Like, it's something that is a necessity within my life, is to have that laptop that I can move around and do work on.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to get, like, a pretty solid machine, right? And I'd like it if I could pick it up. Are you familiar with Micro Center? Is Micro Center something that you've ever dealt with, experienced?
Yeah, man. Micro Centers are all like, yes.
Well, I've only ever heard of them. I've never been to one.
Oh, okay.
So, but when it comes down to like do it, I'm like, well, I'm comparing Micro Center because everybody said Micro Center is like Newegg, but it has physical locations. That's how it was always described to me. And I'm like, well, that sounds pretty good. So considering I got my last laptop that lasted me and was a workhorse these past 7 years, I'm like, well, I could go on Newegg and then I won't get it for like 2 weeks. So I found a computer I wanted on Newegg and then looked to see if it was on Micro Center. Not only was it available at Micro Center, I could pick it up that day.
Yeah, man.
So I got to go to Micro Center yesterday, and I can't believe that it exists. It's like a store from the 90s that still exists in modern times, Sejohn.
Well, it's because they were the only ones that were ever doing like fair, legitimate business. Radio
it seems
Shack
that way, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, the thing is that somebody had to kind of still stick around. There are people out there that still depend on physical brick and mortar stores for this kind of stuff, and so they were able to ride that line between like boutique niche experience and also just like brass tacks, like this is what you need to work. So it's not like walking into an Apple store where you feel like everything is where you feel like you're in like a museum.
It's the future. You're in the future.
Right. Like it doesn't feel like that, but like there is definitely still that element of it of just like this is such a unique experience nowadays. Ooh, and they really they cherish that, I think.
They love it. Like, but there was a whole aisle. Aisle number 9 was like DVD-Rs, and it was a whole aisle of DVD-Rs, and I'm just like, am I in the past right now? How are you like? And
unless they've got a DVD section that seems to just be full of like old collections of sitcoms, like I didn't realize I needed all of Everybody Loves Raymond, but
I'm still a little. If I were alone, I would have plunged deeper into it. But I went with Dale because she also needed some stuff. So we're like, we're finally going to take this pilgrimage because it's like an hour and a half drive, which seems crazy in Rhode Island where everything's 15 minutes from each other. And I'm not upset to do that hour and a half drive. It's just the fact that, like, I don't want to do it on a whim for like an unfounded location. Because, like, let me tell you, the people who are giving me recommendations about going to Micro Center, I've never talked to you, I guess. They're not the most trustworthy of individuals that I've ever dealt with. Let's
go to Micro Center. They fell off the back of a truck at Micro Center. You'll do great.
So yeah, so it felt real cool. Like, it was an excellent experience. I was able to reserve the product. I didn't have to pay in advance. And then, like, I pay in advance and then I get there and they're like, oh, it's not there. Sorry. Like, that's happened to me how many times?
Wait, but that did happen to you?
No, that's not what happened. Right? Okay. So, like, but there are times where, like, I have bought something online from, like, Best Buy, and then I go to Best Buy and they're like, yeah, we don't have it. And I'm like, that's cool. I was charged for it and told to come here to pick it up.
Yeah, Target around me is more notorious for that than anybody. Is they'll tell you that they have like a movie or a book or a game or something that you've reserved, and when you show up, they're just like, yeah, we actually didn't get any copies of that. And it's like, well, then why did you let me buy it?
Yeah, why did you let me buy it? And also, why did you tell me it was available for me to come pick up?
Yeah, and why did I get an email saying my order was ready to be picked up, you dick?
Yeah, Walmart is the worst for that.
Oh,
because
really? I don't even.
They will. Yeah, I don't. My mother does it a lot, and she'll buy things, and then she'll.
Realize after COVID, I don't know the last time I like we used to do Walmart, right? Like that used to be part of the routine for us. Was like, we need to get off campus. What are we gonna do? I don't know. Let's go walk around Walmart for a little bit. Like that was just a way for us to just like blow off steam. Like we used to go to Walmart all the time, and like I don't know, like over the like moving out here already, Walmart was not the number one place to go. There's a couple of Walmarts out here that definitely do just fine, but like there's so many other options out in Utah because every Mormon wants to own their own version of Walmart, their own franchise essentially. So, like, I already wasn't going as much as I used to. And then when COVID hit, we just stopped. And I don't know the last time I've been back in a Walmart.
I went into a Walmart last year. And it was just like there was something I was specifically looking for that had to be purchased physically at the time in order to get the price.
Yeah, I'm sure that somebody could point out, like, oh, for work, you had to stop by and get this. Like, but, like, I can't even remember it.
I'm, like, racking my brain to think of the last time I did it. And I was in there and I'm just like, why was this the thing? Like, why? Like, this is awful. This is.
Well, I'll still go to like a Target though if I like need to again like get out of the house, stretch my legs, or find something like I need a shirt to go to dinner tonight or something. Like I'll do a good old fashioned Target run.
Yeah, I guess what I'm talking about is like Target. Target is comfy. Like when you go inside of Target, Walmart feels like a warehouse, but not in the way that like BJ's is a warehouse.
Right.
Like you go into Walmart and you're just like, why am I here? All of the shelves are barren. Like, are people doing this? Like, did I just get here after the rush on Walmart? Or, well, that can't be. It's 6 a.m. Like,
no, we know how bad it is out there. Straight up, fucking, you have YouTube influencers out there begging people to clean up the Walmart shelves.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. That was the origin story for a lot of villains too, who would go out and destroy the setups because screw you, guy.
Mr. Beast could be either a hero name or a villain name. Either
right? No, I'm talking about the people who once he asked that request of like, "Hey, Beast Army, please."
No, I'm just kind of Beast Army. I just kind of wonder at this point why he is not already kind of leaned into like a Saturday morning cartoon with the amount of money that dude just seems to throw at every project.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that much about him, so that's. The only thing for me was
I call it right now, 2024. By the end of 2024, we will see a Mr. Beast cartoon show probably on Netflix. We'll put that out right now.
I'll take that action. That sounds pretty solid. Jeez, I don't know. But yeah, so I got the new laptop now, and things are back on track. I still don't have a car, but it's not like I need a car right now. It's like I can wait, and I'm able to get to work and everything good. But it was a heck of a week. That like I'm glad it didn't break me. I'm glad I didn't let it break me. Is what I'm going to say.
I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you survived.
Yeah. But yeah. So what about you? How was your week, Sejohn? Tell us about your thing. Your toes fell off, or I hear.
What? Wait, did I say something at
No,
some
no, no.
point
I'm
that I'm
just being
just
an asshole. I'm
remembering?
just being a
Oh,
jerk.
okay. I was trying to like rack my brain for some inside joke I might have like made at some point. Like, I don't know what we say half the time. Like people will talk to me about like jokes that we've made or bits that we've done or stories we've told, and it's just like, oh, I did we? Was that us?
Oh no, podcast brain is real. I don't remember. Once this is done, I'm like in a
Yeah.
different place right now. I could recall probably anything Saraport related in this moment, but like as soon as I stop recording, it's all gone.
No, right. I mean, because we record it, right? Like literally that is the way that a human brain is wired. Like it's like that thing where if you've got a lot of stress, right, and a lot of anxiety, one of the big tactics that you'll often be told to deal with that is like literally sit down and write out what you're thinking right now to get it off of your mind, right? It is that it because it is a known like tactic for dealing with a lot of information coming into the brain that compartmentalizing it and organizing it in some way in front of you outside of your brain can actually help you like work through it, right? And so like we are literally partaking in that exercise every time we record is we are dumping a bunch of stuff onto digital tape so that we then don't have to keep it in our heads. I think that's the biggest thing that people seem to not gather about like YouTubers and podcasters and stuff like that is that like you have the ability to, first of all, you have the ability to listen to this episode 1,000 times over. We all do, but like we only have the ability to record it once,
Once.
right? So like there like I'm guilty of this too, but like there are people out there that will watch YouTube series or will watch or will listen to podcasts and then, you know, get the opportunity to meet their those content creators and say, "Oh man, I loved it this thing." And that content creator will just be like, I'm sorry, my what now? I hit what? And this person's like, this thing that you're known for, this party that you were at, that you know you told this story, and the content creator will be like, oh, that was like once 3 years ago that I said that. You just happened to have just like replayed it for yourself 8 times in this year alone.
I have to tell a story related specifically to that.
Yeah.
When I met Tom Segura, it was at a comedy show. It was a Douglas Movies recording in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And on the drive over to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, I was listening to other podcasts, and it was one that he literally had just recorded. And in that podcast, he told the story about when he and his sister were driving and watched a man be beheaded in a traffic accident.
Jesus, this is a great story,
Like,
Dev. Thanks for bringing this
No,
energy.
well, so that's it. It's like they were driving, and then like the car next to him in the lane that was going really fast. And
We
then,
don't need to really retell the story. That's okay. So yeah,
okay,
so you get to meet him.
So we do it right, and then I meet him, and it's like the cast dropped like the day before I get to meet this guy, and I made like just like a little callbacky joke to it, right? Like to this thing, I'm like, I know it's a thing
This
that happened to
triggering
him.
like
He did it.
traumatic event in his life that you just are like casually.
that you tell it, I'm just like, hey man, I got here without having to watch anybody die with my sister, right? Like that was like that's how offhanded it was. And he's like, how the fuck do you know that? And I'm like, you literally just told this story on a podcast.
Yeah,
And
but it's that idea that like
No,
he
no, no,
could have
no.
recorded that months earlier.
No,
He
and
did
I
it, like,
understand and I understood that, but it was one of those situations where like he thought I knew like his deepest, darkest secret, and I get that, and I understand it. And I'm like, and I don't know when he recorded it or anything like that, but it was just the reaction to it was the fact that like that's one of my deepest. I'm like, dude, you just broadcast that publicly to anyone who listens to this.
Well, I mean, you talk about Doug Loves Movies. Remember, there's famously an episode of that show with one Elizabeth Shue, God bless her, that got like half of its audio like yanked the day after it was released because she didn't realize it was going out to the public and said some stuff she regretted.
Yeah.
Not anything that was like reflected poorly on her. She just talked some shit about some other people in Hollywood, not realizing, oh, this was going to be like available to people.
Or like the episodes of Doug Loves or Getting Doug with High that have been teared down because I didn't realize that that's what I would be like when I was high. Like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess, and it's good, right? Doug Benson takes that stuff down and he takes that stuff seriously, but it's interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah,
stuff,
but it is but these podcasts and the same goes for things like you know memoirs and blogs and like I said, YouTube content creation. Like I think that's one of the biggest things is that YouTube and Twitch really lend themselves to the audience feeling like they're getting to know you personally,
Hmm.
and we've talked about this before. You're not, right? Like those content creators, us included in that. Like as much as we will, try and be as honest as we can when we record this stuff, you're only hearing 2 hours out of our week every time you listen to this show, and have only been hearing that for the last 10 years if you've been listening, right? So like there's this idea being that you only know this many hours worth of us. You don't know all of us, right? And the same and the same can be applied to like YouTube and all that sort of shit. Is like, yeah, you watch this guy every day. Yes, you pay money into this thing and you tweet messages to him and shit like that. And that's great. But at some point that computer turns off and they go do things that you're not aware of. They live a life that you are not familiar with. And you just need to come to terms with the fact that you're never going to know that, shouldn't know that, don't deserve to know that, right? Like there's that line that should not be crossed in that regard. But we just get so used to, we get so caught up in like the information that these creators do give us that, you'd be forgiven for like assuming that a thing was really important to them because they talk about it all the time on their show, when in reality that's like the only time they ever talk about it.
Yes. It's also, we live in really weird times. I remember it was seventh grade, so
You never
like,
guessed that Devon just fucking hates Zelda, so
stop bringing it up. Actually, I might hate Zelda. That's the thing that I'm coming to terms with. Like, I love Link to the Past, but that doesn't necessarily mean I love Zelda. I also like the Wand of Gamelon and the Faces of Evil because I replayed those again. Those games are just fun. They sucked at the time.
yeah.
The more modern versions of those games are fun.
Mm. Yeah, that's those are some words you used, but anyway, keep going.
uh, what was that? We're talking about, I guess, the sausage is made and the 2 hours that you see if people. I don't
Yeah.
even remember what I was going to say in response to what you just said
No,
because you said
I
I
mean,
hate
but
Zelda.
like, you got to blow this up to 1,000,000% on
Oh,
all of the shit that you hear about on the internet of the ways in which people react to things and talk about things. Is you always have to remember that it, it really is a microcosm. Sorry,
yeah,
I'm getting so caught up in this.
it's okay. It's all right. I mean,
Had to
what?
hit that cough button. Sorry.
It's fine. It's okay.
All right.
I think I filled the vamp very nicely.
But no, but like what just because you hear it really is kind of becomes that concept of like the vocal minority gets kind of wrapped up in this too, right? Like we get so kind of like caught up in the things in our own bubble that we think that that's the real world, and we got to remember that it's not sometimes. That's all.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I was going to say. It was in seventh
Sometimes not
grade.
everybody is still using Windows 7.
But seventh grade, so it was like 1998. In our social studies course, it was the internet has made the world smaller. Like that was one of the main thrusts that the teacher was trying to get us to understand is just how smaller the world is because of communication. And we're talking like pre the year 2000. This is a thing that he was trying to teach us. And now in 2023, first of all, because of magazines like People that have been blown up into shows like TMZ and Entertainment Tonight, the people who are famous in Hollywood, they never really get to take a break, right? The way that you just talked about.
Yeah.
Like when you're not on screen, you're not necessarily that person. And then add into that mixture Twitter and the fact that people kind of make themselves available to their fans 24/7 on platforms like Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah.
So it is what you're talking about, that feeling that like you really know somebody. It's easy to see how it could be cultivated.
Right, right. Like I said, you'd be forgiven for assuming that you know a lot about a human being nowadays because you have access to this person in all these different ways. But again, you need to remember that like there are times when they're not on Twitter, there are times when they're not on YouTube, and so like who they are in those times are unknown to you. You can make all the assumptions you want, but at the end of the day, and people then get really surprised because they're like, "Oh, this guy I follow seems to really be into Nazi memorabilia, and I didn't know that." And it's just like, yeah, well, because they were smart enough to not put that out on the internet.
But not smart enough to not let somebody find out.
Well, right.
Yeah.
But like,
No, it's an interesting thing. Yeah, it's
I just So there is a level to this. It's just listening to you talking about like Windows 7 and talking about like what what the world is like for you guys, and it's always really fascinating to me when we talk about things like Dale is still actively making it a point to limit her time in the outside world, and I totally understand why. And if I lived in the situation that you guys lived in the area of the country you lived in, I might feel differently about the way the kind of laissez-faire attitude I have about going out and doing things around here. Um, uh, there's just a whole different kind of context for the ways that you guys are doing that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know really. I don't want to. It also feels like I don't want to not be vigilant about it. Like I can't not live my life, right? And that's why I go out to breakfast. I try to go out to breakfast at least once a month. I am going into shops again and things like that. But like at the same time, I don't want to get caught with my pants down again. The way that we did with COVID,
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
Like
like, yes, my my rejection of that thought is not because it's because at the end of the day, that is going to be impossible. Does that mean that you shouldn't strive for it? No, of course not. Being a little bit more vigilant, being a little bit more like aware of the ways in which you interact with the world, literally, just like physically, like maybe you don't need to touch every surface when you
I'm
walk into
not
the
putting
store.
pennies in my mouth anymore,
Right, you're
Sejohn.
not licking
Like that's
doors.
pretty
Like,
much the
yeah, yeah,
extent of it.
right, right. Like there's some things that we were all doing before that maybe we don't need to be doing. Like the idea of wearing a mask when you're feeling a little under the weather, the idea of taking that day off of work because you feel like shit. Maybe you just take that day off. I know it used to be a thing where we all felt like, no, I need to get in because if I'm letting the whole team down, like no, if you come in, you're gonna kill the whole team. So stay home. Those little things are things we should probably still hold on to, please. Like, I don't want to lose that stuff.
Yeah, those are the things, and that's what I'm seeing go away. We talked about that in an earlier thing. Where it's like people have forgotten that like you can just be regular sick, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
Like, well, it's not COVID, and I'm like, yeah, but like, look at you. You probably shouldn't have come in
I
today.
know. Oh,
Like,
that's the new thing though, right? Is everybody out there is the second that they realize they're sick, and the first thing they'll say is, "But it's not COVID," and they'll have all these reasons that it's not COVID up to and including negative tests and stuff. But it could still be. First of all, it could still be COVID. Like the tests were not 100% accurate even when we were at the height of this thing, right? And then and then And then on top of that, like it doesn't matter if it's not COVID. Like you're saying, it's still a sickness.
yeah, you're still sick, and like you could get, and a lot of that falls on the management styles and things like that. That idea that I'm letting the team down, we didn't come to that organically.
No,
That was something that was fed to us by the people who were profiting off of our work.
because we're a family here, and you can't let the family down. But even like doing personal stuff, like I know that you have had some very specific experiences with like going to the movie theater and stuff. But one of the things that I have dealt with, or not dealt with, but one of the things that I have come to realize with the few times that I have gone out to, just like there have been event movies where I go to like specific theaters that are like designed, with beer and food and stuff like in them and things like that. And I those are a different type of experience for me because there's already like a weird element to the ways in which you behave in those places that you don't in normal theaters, right? So removing that stuff because that's what I've done more than anything, honestly. The few times I've gone to regular theaters, like when I saw Mario and I think when we saw Black Adam and things like that, it is noticeable how much people spread out now, sprawl. Like it used to be the old joke that like you'd be alone in a theater with the best seat and then some asshole would come along and sit right in front of you, right? But like I haven't really seen that happen since we started going back. Like even when I was at Mario the other day, and lo and behold, I was the only one there that didn't have a child with him under, like because everybody else seems to be like using that as their excuse to go see Mario and not just enjoying it themselves, you bastards. And I'm not bitter. I wish I had a kid that I could take to that movie 6 times a week is all it is. But there was definitely this moment where like, kids there running around being a little goofy, and one of the kids started coming down the aisle, not towards me or anything like that, but was definitely coming down to where I was versus where this other family was. And they were just like, no, remember we don't go around people like when we're out places. And I was just like, yes, thank you. Please keep your child away from me. But like, it was also nice to hear that somebody was like, yeah, this is the thing we've talked about with you. Like we keep distance now. And it's like, yes, that's an awesome thing to be teaching your kids. So please continue.
Please continue with that. yeah, like we can be more cautious about it. And none of those things, like I haven't seen it at the theaters that I am, but that's because they all switched to, reserved seating. The
Yeah.
only place that had reserved seating before was AMC. And I liked that because I knew, well, I'm going to sit here and there's nobody sitting around me, right?
Yeah, there's
But
definitely some reserved seating out here, but
yeah,
even in the ones that it's not, like, because they're not all of them are reserved anymore, and not every show is. I think that's what I'm finding more than anything is that certain movies will have reserved seating if they're like premiere movies, but like if you're going to go see Dungeons and Dragons this weekend and it's playing in the smallest theater at the AMC near me, not at AMC because they still do reserved seating for all of them, I think,
yeah,
but yeah, Cinemark, or we have this Larry H. Miller place out here is another one that's in a bunch of places.
cool. And that's probably like a local guy who just wanted to be his own AMC.
He owns like three or four theaters out here, and they're really nice. Like they've got like IMAXs in them and everything. But I think it's one of those Utah, like I was talking about
Yeah,
earlier. Everybody out here in Utah wants to have their own little franchise. I think
that's
it's
what
one
I
of
was
those.
trying to call
Yeah,
back to. Yeah.
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 Like he was probably like a dentist or something out here, and now owns a bunch of
And
movie
now he
theaters.
owns a bunch of movie theaters. And that's great because he gets to hobnob probably with Sundance, and good for Larry H. Miller.
Good for him.
Yeah, I don't know. Because, yeah, but what I am seeing now, right? Because even with AMC, where you would reserve the seating, I'd still see that thing where, like, there'd be no seats reserved when I reserve my stuff. And then come tonight, the only other seats that are taken are, like, the seats directly in front of me and the seats directly behind me. And it's like, you had the whole theater to choose from. And
it's
now
not
we
like
are
there's-
6 people in this movie theater.
Yeah, and like with stadium seating and the fucking IMAX size screens and shit nowadays, even when you're not in an IMAX movie, like there's not a bad seat to be in, really. Like, oh, why would you do that? Don't sit near people, especially not nowadays.
Yeah. Well, but then, and it's, so like that was before, but now seeing the reserve seating, you're right. People do try to avoid it.
Yeah.
And, and it's also nice because I don't know, this is something that's crazy to me. So like when we saw Black Adam, because, I like to be cautious and make sure the three of us sat next to each other, but then I had also booked a seat to the side of each of us. So we'd have a buffer, right? In case the 10:50 showing of Black Adam tends to be like a run at this theater, there'd at least be a buffer between
On a Wednesday night.
yeah, on a Wednesday night, there'd be a buffer between us and anyone else who might be seeing the movie, right?
Right.
And that's like just a safety thing. It's really easy to do it on Wednesdays because that's like the really cheap ticket day for the theater that we were going to. I didn't feel bad doing it, right? It was just like peace of mind. But like people don't I don't know. This is crazy. This is what I saw. You can't leave a seat between people now when you do the reservation, and that just seems crazy to me. Right?
That's
like
really weird,
online, like if someone was like, we were trying to book seats for Mario and this came up and I read it and then I tried it and I'm like, that's weird. Because like, yeah, like I booked us 5 seats right next to each other. But like if we had just been the two of us and we tried to leave a seat behind us and between us, and that's the thing that people do. It's not something that we ever did. Mostly because like we like to talk during movies. Like spoilers. If you go into a movie and you see Sejohn and I, don't sit near us because we're probably going to be like titta 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 titta, but during the movie, like it.
Well, so like you mean like they're forcing like groups, like if I go in after somebody else has bought and I want to buy a seat, but I don't want there to be I don't want to be right on top of somebody, so I buy a seat.
So
over.
you're fine doing that. You and I are buying tickets to the movies, right? I'm the one who's going to go in and get our seats. And we want a space between us. So I book like I-10 and I-12. It will not let me proceed because there's a seat between us. But
so you have to pay for 11 if you want I-10 and I-12.
If you want it to be spaced out. Or
Interesting.
you can book I-10 and I-11 or I-11 and I-12 and be forced to sit next to each other.
I mean, that's kind of fair in regards that like they want like somebody could really fuck them up if they kept going in and buying every other seat and not the ones in between, because they're never going to sell the single seats. Like that's just not going to happen.
Right. But someone could, right? It's not that,
Sure.
It's not some asshole could buy the middle seat on the plane.
They don't deal in the realm of, oh, this could happen. Let's
I know.
do this.
I understand, but it's just Talking about seating and the fact that, yes, I've definitely noticed as you go into reservations that people will tend to leave a row or they'll shift over, and it
Yeah,
usually is about like a 3-seat shift, which is kind of nice to see. I'll be honest about that.
yeah.
But then I also see, is that for like a reason, because the theater always recommends seats to you when you go log in. So I don't know if people are just taking those seats that are given to them without looking at what it might be available, and that's what's leading to these shifts that are there. And I had never really
I mean,
considered that until I found out that these systems have the thing that people need to sit next to each other.
yeah. I don't. Yeah, I don't. I mean, I'd like to think that it's kind of a little mix of both because that just means that they're also thinking about the consumers when they're creating those kinds of algorithms
Yeah.
and not just themselves. But that's probably not happening. Let me put it that way.
Well, I guess we'll never know. It's just something crazy. I don't know what this episode has been. I talked about my crappy week, and then I don't know how we got here. Anything else, man? Like before I go, like I want to go
I've
big
been playing
drops
a
on Vampire Survivors.
Yeah.
So
Well, I've been playing a fuck ton more of Death's Door. Um,
right,
it's been just a freaking blast. Like, I am so not the kind of guy that is into these games, like these punishing, like get good games. But that is what this is, like true and blue. It's just that it's funny and it's not that it's forgiving so much as it doesn't feel as punishing, even though it's still punishing me, right? Like it feels like a slap on the wrist. It never feels like I'm getting like a full on like ass whooping from this game.
I need to play Death's Door.
It,
I said I was gonna finish Ori and the Blind Forest, and then I got further in it, but I was unable to go back to it because I was dealing with other stuff, understandably. And then, frick, I don't know. Vampire Survivors came out and it stole from me.
yeah.
Like I don't want to say that it stole time from me, but
Did it?
oh
Did
my,
it suck it away from you? Bit
no,
by
no, no, no.
bit?
I'm not looking like Dorian
Oh,
Gray's picture right now. Infinite. No, it's just. But Death's Door is loaded up from my Game Pass, and it is a game that I'm going to play. And then once I do, hopefully you're still into it. It should be this week, so like
I
by
mean,
next episode we should be able to
like
talk about
here's
it.
the thing:
Like,
is the way that it's got me in the best ways that games can get me, and I think that's what makes it maybe kind of a step above with some of these other games in this genre for me.
mm-hmm.
Is there is a dark cuteness to it that I'm just like a sucker for, right? And on top of that, like there's a dry humor that is not there to like make you guffaw and forget about like the crappiness of the world, but more like we're all making these jokes because if we don't laugh, we'll cry. Like every character feels like that. Like it's like, oh man. So there's Tim Burton. Like some of the best Tim Burton films have that kind of aspect to them, right? Like there's a yeah. It's hitting all of those kinds of notes, and because that is feels so warm and comforting for me, I'm okay with some of the more punishing stuff in it where like there's an upgrade mechanic to it, but the upgrades don't make you feel like you are a completely different character. Like it's not like, oh, I've upgraded my strength and now it automatically applies in this way that makes me realize my strength is better, right? Like at first I was almost like maybe I upgraded incorrectly. Maybe I didn't put it where I thought I did. But I went back and I checked and I was like, no, I definitely upgraded this and this. So I don't know why I'm not seeing major differences. And at first, like that was concerning me because I was like, oh man, like I don't know. But then it's literal like point percentages are like you're that much faster, you're that much stronger, you can take that much more damage. So after a couple of upgrades, I was like, oh shit, okay, so this is working, and I am definitely playing. And now I have to wonder, am I playing better now because of the, like microcosmic upgrades I've been doing, or just because I've been playing and I'm just getting it better into my muscle memory? And it's both. The answer is it's both. And so like it feels really, really, really well balanced in that way. It's really interesting. Like it's not like I suddenly upgraded like and I have this new weapon that just like takes everybody out that like 2 seconds ago I was struggling with. Like it's still a struggle. So I'm still kind of like dealing with it, but really still enjoying my time with it immensely.
yeah. I mean, I'll finish Ori and we'll dedicate myself to at least starting the game this week. I will say that
It
because I want
feels
to
like it's
try it.
also a short one. That's the other
Yeah,
thing is I've probably put about 7.5 hours into it, and I've gotten 2/3 of the game done as far as I can tell. Like there's a pretty obvious path in that game. Let me put it that way, and it looks like I've gotten about 66% of it done now, and like that's after 7.5 hours. So if I spend more than 15 hours with this game, I'll be surprised. I'd love to because the world is amazing, but I just don't think this game has it in it.
yeah.
But we'll see. Maybe I'm missing like a back half of the game or something.
I remember when that game came out, and a bunch of the streamers that I like drop in on when I just need background noise were excited for it, and so I thought this is probably going to be like a week of this as content, or like they're going to keep going back to it, and it was like done within a day.
Yeah.
Like it dropped and then it was gone. So that does sound like the case about this game. And
Yeah.
not that that's good or bad, but it's just that's an interesting thing for you to mention.
Well, it's on
So
sale right now on Switch for like $6. So like that, so like if that,
yeah,
if that tempts you in any way and you don't have access to it on like Game Pass or something, like grab it on the Switch while it's cheap.
yeah. I'm excited to try it out. It's one that I was excited about. It kind of looks like Hades, right? Like it's that semi isometric view.
So camera wise,
Yeah,
it's definitely that. Stylistically though, it's
it's different.
something
Yeah.
else. It's wow. It reminds me something more like Samurai Jack kind of meets like Adventure Time.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I know
Yeah,
you're a
yeah.
crow, right? Like that's your character is
Yeah,
a little crow.
so the Reapers in this world are all crows, and something has happened, and you find yourself in a world where the doors back to like the Reaper world were for some reason cut off, and all of the Reapers that were stuck on this side have perished. So now you're on this side. You can get back, but you're trying to solve the mystery of what happened and all of this, and it's got a very very cool story
Yeah.
and like lore to it. But like I said, just watching it in motion is gorgeous. But yeah, it does have that isometric view to it for sure.
Like that's what was appealing to me is that I liked Hades, but the nature of Hades with the fact that it's procedurally generated every single time, like I never really felt connected to the world because I knew that it would change the next time
Oh,
through.
so it's also this is the only game that purposefully doesn't have a mini map that
Oh,
I
love it.
that I well see I'm not normally on board for that type of game, but the world is not static like things definitely change within it and all that but it is a set map, right?
Yeah.
And it needs to be because part of it is figuring out how to get around certain areas and then Dark Souls style like you pull a lever and a ladder drops and suddenly you've got a shortcut back to your bonfire, right? Like that's that's the style of navigation. And so yeah, the ways in which like because it's a set world you kind of get to know the map and you need to get to know the map because that's the only quick way to get around, otherwise you're going to be wandering for hours. Yeah, it's got a pretty clean separation from Hades in that regard.
Cool. Because like those are the things that are brilliant. And now to know that it's like a dry humor, I want more dry humor in video games.
Yeah.
Because the other game that I played this year that I enjoyed and like I dumped a lot of time into it because it had like that collectathon. Sort of the same thing I'm going to talk about with Vampire Survivors when we get there eventually. Was Nobody Saves the World.
Yeah.
But that game is like, we're trying to be funny all the time. And I'm like, you really don't need to be. Like, I can just play this game and enjoy this
there's
game. Like,
there's a style, it's the Zuckerberg style of comedy. Every
yeah,
page has to have at least two jokes on it, right? Like is the bit that some people go with, and it's the shotgun effect. Or the other big example of it is Mystery Science Theater, right? Like
yeah.
every moment there has to be a joke, and eventually one will land, right? Is like kind of the bit there. No, and I like Nobody Saves the World, but you're not wrong. The comedy in it is pretty much nonstop
The
bullshit.
comedy, and I'm just like, I really like this game, and I really love how you have to unlock the different forms, and then once you're in the forms, how you have to like look at the ways to make the form stronger.
Isn't there
Like,
a multiplayer aspect to Nobody?
maybe I don't.
Maybe I'm thinking of the DLC or something
There,
because I know that they put a
the
I know they put an
DLC is
update
the
out.
worst kind of DLC. I will say that
Oh,
because it's
really?
in the game. Like you can stumble upon it, and then you're like, "Oh, I'm in a new area," and then like you get gate kept after
No, and
exploring
then
a
they're
little
like,
bit.
"Oh, you can't go any further, but if you like this, pay us 29."
Yeah, and it's just like, that's awful. Like I get it from a marketing standpoint because like you've just like I need to satiate my
I was gonna,
curiosity.
yeah,
But
that's not the worst kind of DLC. The worst kind of DLC is that plus its actual story, Catwoman.
oh yeah, fair. Still never played the Catwoman stuff in Arkham City. I proudly have never done
I
it.
can't fathom that game without it. Is all.
Well, you know that I don't like it, so you're probably correct. I don't know if I'll ever do it. Like, it was one of those things where I bought it new, I had the code, and then I'm like, you know what, though? I want to see what just the Batman stuff is like. All right, it's Vampire Survivors time, Sejohn, because I'm very proud of it. And
I'm very proud of you, Vampire Survivors. You did a good job.
It's not just that I'm proud of Vampire Survivors. They did a good job. It's just... So when I first found this game, it's been a year. It's been a year since I found the game. And when I first got into it, it was playing a game and trying to solve the mysteries of how to evolve all the weapons, unlock everything that's in it. And then the first DLC, it didn't feel that way. I don't know if... Have you done any of the DLC stuff at all?
I don't think so. Wait, what was the first DLC?
So the first DLC was it was like kind of Asian folklore themed. Like there's a tanuki and stuff like that. It added a bunch of weapons like the silver wind and like the balls that they use. It's called the 108 Bachi. So like there's cool stuff that they added. They added a new map, and the map is sort of segmented into 6 sections. So like even though it's one level, it feels like different biomes within that one map.
That's
which
wild.
is kind of interesting. It's kind of a cool thing that they did. But I mean, that experience the first time through of finding what evolved each weapon, I didn't feel that with the first DLC. And from my memory, I think it's because the Grimoire like showed you what you needed to evolve the weapons.
Oh, like it just kind of gave the secret away.
It just kind of gave the secret away. But then, and spoilers, right? If you're listening, I don't want to take this away from you. But so it would say that like the Silver Wind requires, and I don't remember right now off the top of my head, because like those are not weapons that I've used as much as like the original set of weapons. It would tell you that it needed whatever it needed to evolve.
Yeah.
But that also needs to be at the highest level. Whereas with the standard weapons, the weapon itself needs to be at the highest level, and you just need to be in possession of the like passive item.
Right.
You need to have them both at the highest level in order to trigger the evolutions from the Moonlight DLC.
Interesting.
So
okay.
so I think like that was sort of the lesson that they were trying to teach through gameplay. It's like, well, why isn't it evolving? Like the Nightshade is the one that I definitely know because it needs the duplicator to evolve. And it's like, I have the duplicator, I have the Nightshade, why isn't it evolving? It's like, well, the duplicator's not at the highest level yet. And I think like the way that it's built is so that, because the duplicator only has the 2 levels that you can do. So they built it so that you realize, oh, like I need to make sure that I'm evolving both things to get them.
Right.
So then coming into Fiscari, which is DLC 2, this one is all... It kind of feels like Gauntlet. Gauntlet would probably be the closest analog that I could reference. But it's like sorcerers and warriors and an archer. It's really cool. The map is awesome. The map is like woodland themed, and the first things that you fight are goblins. And then if you get near the like water, a bunch of fish things come out of it and attack you. Like, it's really cool. And if you go towards the mushroom forest, then it's mushroom men who are attacking you. Like, it's that sort of biome system again, but for the longest time, the first character that you unlock, the coffin unlock of the new level, they have a whole new mechanic for how their weapon functions. You have to get 3 different weapons, and then once they evolve, they join to become another weapon. So it's sort of like the guns, where the guns evolve into a single thing, but it's 3 separate things.
Yeah.
So like it's, oh my god, it completely changes how you have to approach it. It's so cool.
They may be crossing a line for me in that, not like a point of no return or anything like that, but they are slowly getting into, let's call it Dota territory or even League of Legends territory, where like if you're not, like, this feels like the stop. If you're not ready to be on this train forever, get off now, because otherwise the only way to really play Vampire Survivors in the next like 5 years, I bet sometime in the next 5 years, it's really going to feel like I can't play this game because at some point I stopped paying attention. You know, like Destiny is actually hitting this moment for me right now, where like I really kind of was like getting this weird itch to go back to Destiny 2 the other day. Like I was just like, man, I own it. Like I own the first handfuls of DLC. They've given out a whole bunch of free shit lately. Like what the hell? Why not? Like I could do Destiny again. And then I realized like, oh, I don't want to go back to Destiny again right now because like everybody that's been playing Destiny is so in it and so good at it that like that's their life, right? Like that is what they do. Is they're like, yeah, I work, but I have a squad that we meet up to play Destiny afterwards, and that's what I really like doing. Is like I don't live that life, and I feel like Vampire Survivors when they're as they're starting to add more and more of this stuff and more of these like niche mechanics and nuances, because these are not huge shifts to like what you already did in the game. They're just it's nuances and complicating like a lot of really interesting mechanics that were already there, and I applaud them for that. But again, it feels like if I'm not gonna do this for the rest of my life, then I don't know if I want to get involved with this now.
That's fair. I can understand that. And I have not played Vampire Survivors the way that I play Vampire Survivors. Whenever there's an update, I go back into Vampire Survivors. Mm-hmm. And it's like riding a bike, the muscle memory kicks in, and I'm able to do it. So for Scary, it felt like the first shift from the game where I had a mystery to solve again, and I loved it. It felt so good to me to be playing the game like that again.
Yeah.
But I get where you're coming from, where eventually that's going to hit a level where, like, I don't have the time. Eventually,
like, think about, like, WoW, right? Like, you just said that, like, you've gotten into the habit of just coming back whenever there's an update. And then you play through the update stuff, and you're good, you're satisfied. And then the next time there's an update, you'll come back, right? Which is exactly what WoW evolved into for so many groups, right? It was like, yeah, like we wish we could play this like we did back in college. We can't do it all the time. But we do make the time when the update comes out. And we do get into it, and we do learn the new stuff. We have opinions about it and all of that. To the point where, like, there were a lot of people out there where the only video game that they played for 10 years was WoW. That was gaming to them. And that's cool. That was again, not me. By the time I got around to being around people that really played WoW, they were like, yeah, you should play with us sometime. You should join. You really love this game. But they were 3-4 years into their experience with that game. I couldn't crack that nut. Right? Like there was no way I was going to be able to be on the same level as them for a while, and without like a group around me to like lift me up, like I couldn't get into WoW because I came to it at the wrong time, right? And that's what I'm saying is I'm warning anybody listening now is that beyond this point, if you are not playing Vampire Survivors beyond this point, you're going to start feeling like I think it's too late for me to get into Vampire Survivors.
I mean, I think you could still play the base game. Because the DLC is not required, and you're paying for it. So if you want to pay the $5 for entry, and then you can enjoy that, and you want more, then the $2 DLCs that come out are something that you can dive into.
Mm-hmm.
I really think that the base game, as it's structured, can find an audience regardless of the time.
Yeah, but a lot of my experience with the base game, and I know this was not necessarily the case with you, although it kind of was, just from the other side of it, like, I learned a lot from other people about this game. I learned by watching YouTubers, I learned by talking to you, I learned by going onto subreddits, all of that sort of stuff, right? It's kind of like when Fez first came out and the community was working together to teach one another what to do, and like more experienced players will kind of drop some knowledge without trying to spoil things, like that kind of stuff, right? Like we're moving past that point now, because if I start the base game now and I go looking for information, you're right. Right now, I probably could still find a bunch of people still willing to help me with base game info. But the more and more DLC that comes out, the more and more the community focus is going to be on these mechanics that are more nuanced, more intricate that you're finding in the DLC. You're going to find less and less people that are willing to talk about Vampire Survivors vanilla as more and more of these DLCs come out. And, I mean, the fact that they're cheap and accessible just makes that all the more true.
That's a good point. I hadn't considered that. Oof. Man.
Like I said,
you're right. You're just ignoring it. You're just acknowledging it. I get that.
Yeah.
I hadn't considered that part of it. But also, you're sort of right. Like, one of the characters that you unlock in the new DLC, if you don't know where to go for it, you're probably never going to find, like the magic pixel you have to stand on to make it possible to do that.
Yeah.
And that's one of the coolest things about it. And also, and like spoilers for it, there's a golden egg nest in this new DLC. And that, it makes golden eggs like experience points. I collected 500 golden eggs the first time I found that place.
And what do you do with the golden eggs again?
Golden eggs, that point like progression that you talked about with Death's Door, that's what it does to your stats.
Right.
So it makes your base character stronger based on how many golden eggs you are. But you're only getting like 0.1% added to each of those for every golden egg that you collect.
Yeah, but if you find 100, right, then
Yeah.
suddenly you find yourself with a 10% boost somewhere. Like that's pretty rad.
But it's all based on RNG. So like it could up your greed level, which would give you more money every time you collect gold, or it could give you a higher curse level, which just means that you're surrounded by enemies endlessly.
Interesting.
So it's a really interesting mechanic, the golden eggs. And they've added a way to get rid of golden eggs now. That was added into the base game a while ago. But now that golden eggs, like there's a place where you can go, kill enemies, and the reward for every enemy you kill is a golden egg. And they're not the strongest enemies ever. So like you can, like, my first one was at 500, and then I got 225 the second time that I went in there. And that was with a weaker character than the first one. I was a weaker build. The character himself was not weaker. But the build that I had put together for the first character was meant to basically, I can AFK until I get to this time because I was trying to unlock something. And then I was able to AFK in a golden egg nest that just, here's all the upgrades you need to make this character unstoppable. And
Nice.
it's a character I don't even like. No offense, he's the archer character, and I find his attack is a little slow, like his base arrow attack.
Yeah,
But
you just admitted that you got to a really like high build.
But I was able to get, like, the build was crazy. Well, like, because that's the thing, because you experiment. And what I found with Viscari is I'm experimenting more. And part of that comes from the fact that the archer specifically requires 2 items in order to evolve their base weapon.
Okay.
So, like, I had to find those 2 items and try to figure it out. So I kept just playing with this character and collecting items until I finally was able to evolve the thing. And then I'm like,
awesome.
all right, picture taken, and that's cool. And that's what I also had to do with the warrior character that they added, which, it's so good. But, like, also, you're not wrong. Like, here's me confirming what you just said about it's going to be a barrier to access eventually, and this might be it. The way that I ended up solving both of those characters was looking at, as characters, the flavor text for where their bonuses lie. And one of them is like, he gets an armor bonus every level up. So I'm like, oh, well, trying to level up, let's see if it's armor that does it. And then lo and behold, right? So, and even figuring that out, though, like, I still experimented before being like, where can I find the answers?
The entire, like, fucking lore to Destiny being hidden on, like, playing cards that you collected and then had to trade on like, the website. You had to, like, join the forums. How is that game still around and Avengers is dead?
Because they were the first. There's the end. And they weren't really the first, but they were the ones who did a lot of those things for the first time. So, like, it's cute and it's kitschy, where, like, Avengers very much was trying to ape off of Destiny.
Yes, yeah.
And that's just life. But to play I finished the new Vampire Survivors DLC within a day. I will admit that. I had gotten all the unlocks and I was caught up on the Xbox. I still haven't done it on my Steam build of the game. I need 3 more achievements, but I already know how to get them because I've already gotten them, right? It's just putting in the work to do it, which is cool. Like, it's an interesting, like, dichotomy that I'm living in. But I don't know. It felt good to do that. Like, to jump into the game and it feel like the first time again.
Yeah,
and if the DLC is able to do that going forward, I'll be happy. But you bring up an interesting point that I hadn't considered, in the fact that, like, the reason why I'm able to do that is because I have the knowledge.
Yeah.
So, I don't
Yeah,
know.
you know, and like and those games, like there are games like that across the board. There are tons of games out there that people are like, yeah, that's a whole world I just can't get into. You know, like I mentioned, like Dota, League of Legends, like these are lifestyle games out there for people where they become personas when they begin to play these games, and you want your game to get there at some level because like that's success, right? Like that's ongoing, guaranteed success. Having a community like that, you know, and um, Vampire Survivors, like if it is able to pull off that swing of like becoming this game that in 5 years we're talking about as like a thing that like people are still super niche into, but there's like tournaments and like people are out there like joining teams and stuff. Like I hope we could be talking about it that way because, like I said, like that's success. That's a pretty that's a pretty well off developer at that point, right?
Yeah. And especially when you consider that the guy wasn't even aiming for that. I don't know.
Right.
It's a cool story. Vampire Survivors really captures everything I love about gaming in it, and that's been enjoyable.
Yeah, both in game and on a meta level, right?
Yeah.
Like, 'cause, yeah.
Exactly. I don't know. That's basically been my week. Is there anything else that you want to talk to before we end this one? We can do a short one this week, right? I'm tired after everything that I've done. But
No, I mean, there's not too much else going on. You know, I'm sitting tight now until Guardians comes out next month. So like, they're not doing much in the movie realm.
like I want to see Air, I want to see Renfield, but like they're gonna be home soon enough, and like those are movies I know the whole family wants to see.
Yeah,
so-
and Air is one that like is like Amazon produced, isn't it?
that someone was like upset that everybody wanted to go see the Super Mario Brothers movie instead of Air, and like this is why we don't get movies like Air anymore. And all I was thinking was, but Air was supposed to be direct to Prime Video.
Right.
And then, like, in the final moments, they're like, oh, we were able to get a theatrical deal with this one. So me already being resigned to watching it at home, it's hard for me to be excited about going to see it in a movie theater.
It's
Does
also
that make
not.
sense? Like,
Yes, 100%. And the other thing is that it's a true story, like biopic, like there's not like a big reveal in that movie that I need to go and see so that that it's not ruined for me. You know, it's not Usual Suspects. It's not, you know what I mean? Like
it's not the crying game. Yeah.
like I want to see that movie because it looks like it's a very well acted, very well put together piece of cinema. It's going to still feel that way when I watch it at home in 2 months. Like that's the thing is, you know, I know like guys like Scorsese and Spielberg is such a hypocrite in my book in this conversation. But anyway, like I know that they lament like the ways in which people don't go to traditional cinema anymore and like this kind of stuff. And you know, I am considering going to Scorsese's 4-hour cut of Killers of the Flower.
I can't wait to see that in theaters.
So like it's a really weird like the balance of like what I'm willing to do and why I'm willing to go out to a movie and stuff like that. Like I've always been very open about how like I'm kind of meticulous about that more and more in my old age, right? Like I'm not. It's not a secret that like I kind of treat my time as more precious as I did when we were in college and we were spending all of our time at the movie theater. But like I just. I don't have the drive. I don't have the desire to like see every movie opening weekend anymore. And like people just need to get over that.
Yeah, I get that. I just don't have the bandwidth for it. When I was seeing a movie like every day. Like that was the thing, and I would like take a day off. And that was because I was on Movie Pass, so I needed to give it the day to recharge. But like, I don't. You're right, and watching them at home, it's a kind of a more comfortable experience. I'm happy that Super Mario Brothers was not problematic, but John Wick 4, the guy next to me who was on his phone the whole movie, like dicking around and with the light, and I'm just like, and then after the movie, when the people sitting in front of him go to leave, he's like, oh, there's an after credits scene. Like, what? How dare you care about this movie? The way that you have acted the entire time, to the fact that you're talking to strangers and like imploring them to stay because there's something after the credits.
Maybe he was a critic and just taking notes.
I don't know. It just felt so strange the way that like he had interacted with the movie up to that point.
Well, and that's the other thing is that Air is not the type of movie where I feel like I need to share it with other people, right? Like Air is a movie that I'm going to watch for my own kind of like, further entertainment and possibly education. There's something to be learned in that story. Maybe I don't know. I haven't seen the movie yet, but like this idea being that I don't need 100 other strangers to watch that movie with me for me to like kind of have fun with it. Whereas like, one of the parts of going to see the Mario movie that was really enjoyable was having somebody else there that was also rooting along with it. There was that moment in that movie with Cat Mario where like he just shows up and this woman in the back of the theater just goes, "Aw," and then in the movie they comment on it, and I was just like, "That's perfect!" Like, and I wouldn't have had that experience sitting in my own home, Like, there's something about the Mario movie. There's something about movies like that. Dungeons and Dragons is another one that I feel this way about. Renfield in some ways I feel this way about. I want to enjoy those movies with other people. Because, like, there's something about the silliness of them that is much more fun in large groups. That's just not something that a movie like Air asks of me,
Yeah, I get it. But so there's not movie stuff. A lot of shows are coming to an end, which seems weird for April, because I always kind of felt like it was May before. So I don't know what we're going to look at for, like, summer TV now.
Yeah, I don't know. Are people watching TV anymore? I've kind of lost the thread on television.
I don't know. I mean, my father watches television, so that's where I see commercials. And I'm not really watching Abbott Elementary, but like the season finale is this week, and like middle of April feels early for that.
Well, were there a lot of possible sports that just didn't end up panning out, like getting in the way, like that kind of thing?
I don't know. I mean, Wednesday they tend to put stuff like that on Wednesday. It's like Survivor's on Wednesday, is because very rarely is there a sporting event that preempts Wednesday programming.
Yeah, no Olympics that came in.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what it is. To me it feels like they were trying to make sure everything was done in case of the writer's strike. So they wanted to make sure everything was written and shot in case Hollywood shut down again. Because that was a thing that they were talking about, if you recall that. I don't know if they're still talking about it, but...
I mean, barely. I don't recall it, to be entirely honest.
Okay.
So that's
there were a couple of things that I saw about it. It's... Yeah, so I don't know. So it's weird, but like I'm caught up on SWAT, and I gotta dedicate more time to it. That's not for near an end of the episode type thing. Yeah. So if you've enjoyed the episode, you can reach us on Twitter at the Say Report. Specifically, if anything for Sejohn, let's say you're playing Death's Door and you want to share that experience. Make sure you send it to at the Say Report and that Sejohn's there, because he's off of Twitter. He's somehow gotten out. Good for him is what I
Yeah, well, I left and NPR was like, well, shit, if Sejohn's going, we're going to leave too.
I mean, I think NPR was also slighted by by the guy who owns the thing. Did Elon Musk like steal a parking spot from you, Sejohn? This is the place where you can tell. It's a safe space. The Say Report.
Is that the only reason I left Twitter was because of a personal slight from him. Yeah. No. But if you're fucking around with the new Vampire Survivors DLC and you want to commiserate with someone, you can reach out to Dev at Devon D. Decker.
And I'll also give you spoilers, but you have to ask 3 times before I'm giving it to you. So that's just going to be my own personal feelings on that. But until next time, Will, please bring us home. And everyone, have a great rest of your week.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devon Decker and Sejohn Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.